What is up? Welcome back to Game Brigade. My name is Brian, and today we are going to be doing another Should You Back, and this time talking about DC Superheroes United, currently on GameFound. This is the breakdown, where we basically break down a campaign, give you my thoughts and feelings on that said campaign, and also tell you kind of maybe where value might be, some backing recommendations, because I want you guys to have the best backing decisions and experience going forward. So why not we just hit the campaign and get talking about it. So the first thing before we get too far, I think we should talk about the gameplay system, or what is DC United, the superheroes game. That way you understand what we're talking about, and if you're curious at all how this game works, we're going to tell you right now. So here we have the basics. I like this campaign page because CMON has done a very good job here, kind of outlining how this game operates and works, and giving you pretty good examples and descriptions. Really like that. So A+ on that one. So what is this game? Well, it's a pretty expansive game where you are going to be playing as a number of different types of superheroes, or even some of villains from the DC universe, and they've taken from a whole wide variety of different types of storylines and comic book characters for you to experience. In this game, you are going to pick one hero, usually. Now, you could play multiple heroes if you wanted to, but you're usually going to pick one hero who consists of around 12 cards. And in those cards, you're going to play them around the board, as you can see here on my screen, in a storyline timeline. Now, the storyline is basically the events and how they've unfold through the course of the battle, while the villain is trying to do whatever their specific goal is. Now, that's one of the key things that makes this game special or unique, is that all of the villains have a different mechanic and gameplay style that they're trying to accomplish, and they're usually pretty thematic in terms of what that character normally does in the comic books, and so it feels like you're actually fighting that character, which is cool. So let's say we're going to go ahead and do an example here of how the gameplay works. We are playing this Batman character, and we're going to play down an ability. You're going to do the top ability. So this one says, during any of your terms, flip this card over, and any master plan cards to, I can't read the rest of it. I think it's a flip ability to protect yourself. And then it has a wild resource. That's what basically this little box down here has, all three colors. That means that you can take any of the available three actions, which is, the punching, the movement, or the star. Each one does something differently. Basically, let's keep it simple. The punch will defeat, either deal a damage to the boss if he's on your territory, or defeat any of these thugs. It's these red tokens. The move lets you move around the board. Each movement is one space. And the star normally allows you to rescue these hostages or civilians that are just in the way, and lets you rescue them and bring them off the board. Usually those are part of some of the requirements for completing the game. Now, the way the game is kind of interesting, though, is the next player in line plays their card. They're going to take their actions and that of their card, plus they're going to get the bottom row of yours. So the card you play is going to affect your opponents. Now, if we go here to the United system, they kind of talk about that here, how each of these players are going to take advantage of the continuing system. So example here, Batman gets these double wild, and he's going to take advantage of the 2 stars that Wonder Woman played there, eventually putting those tokens of whatever they completed up into these threat lines. Now, once you've done that, once you've unlocked a certain section, you can kind of see right here on the board where I'm kind of pointing, you've got these 3 sections. Once you've completed one of those, then the villain is going to speed up. It usually starts the under pressure requirements, and after you've completed a second one, now the villain can actually be damaged by the heroes. So normally you're not able to deal damage to the villains because you have to stop those extra threats first, but once you've done at least 2 of the side missions, then you can actually go after the main villain. So what are we looking at when we're talking about this campaign? Now, I waited until today to film this video. Today is the 29th, but it's probably going to be going live on the 30th, because I was waiting for the all-in pledge to be posted, which looks like it's the Conqueror pledge, which was posted today. And so we can actually talk about these 3 pledges here to kind of give you an example of what you're looking at. The first pledge is the Super Friends pledge. This is the $65 pledge, and basically consists of the DC United Superheroes core box, as well as any stretch goals that are going to be unlocked during the campaign. If you have any questions about the stretch goals, because I'm not going to really go over them, I'll just touch on them real quick. You click the stretch goals button here on the left, and you can see here all of the unlocked stretch goals that are crowdfunding exclusive, which means these are not sold at retail. The only way to get these items is to back the campaign or purchase this secondhand through the aftermarket. And if you are new to crowdfunding, because there's a vast majority of my audience who are new to crowdfunding, generally games that have a vast amount of stretch goals that are Kickstarter exclusive usually hold their value or are more expensive post-campaign. So if this is a game you're wanting and you're kind of kicking around, be aware of that. But I don't want to FOMO you, but you should be aware. So take a look here. You can see all the stretch goals that have currently been unlocked and go through the value. There are some great things. I'm going to be talking about the stretch goals here. And then you can see what is next to unlock, which currently it's Deadman. And these are monetarial-based stretch goals. So as the campaign does better and gets more unlocks, more stuff will be unlocked and so on. So let's go back to the rewards. So when we're looking at the Super Friends box, you get for $65, you get the core box as well as the stretch goals. Now let's talk about what comes in the core box, because all of the stuff is going to come in the core box. And this is something that's going to be basically retail available minus any Kickstarter exclusives. So that's something we should be aware of. Now I had a chance to play this core box, which is great. So I had a chance to play Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman. I got a chance to see all these guys played at one time, and we also played against some of these villains, as well as the henchmen versions of them as well, when we played the Lex Luthor options. So overall, as a core box, this gives you good value. One of the things I liked a lot about the core box that we played is each of these characters, Superman, Batman, the Flash, and Cyborg and Aquaman, all felt very unique. Wonder Woman felt unique. The time I played Wonder Woman, I didn't really care for her because she was so niche-y in terms of she wanted to just rescue, I felt like, civilians all the time. And her ability, we were playing Darkseid, and it wasn't really coming up. It was very hard for me to solve the puzzle, but that's also part of the game, and what makes this an interesting system is that playing a hero and then playing against a villain, the uniqueness and the combination and how they interact, and you have to figure out how best to utilize the cards in the time limit allowed. So in terms of the villains, I did not get to play Cheetah. We played Darkseid. We got to see the Joker. We saw Lex Luthor. I like the variety in terms of the villains that we faced and what they're doing. Lex Luthor kind of does a kind of like a hero, like he's trying to be the hero, so he's actually rescuing civilians, beating up thugs, dealing damage to the henchmen, but eventually we are trying to stop him for whatever reason. I'm not sure. I don't know the timeline or the story as to why that's happening, but that's what he's doing. Darkseid was very brutal and very hard. And he was basically shutting down locations and taking these threat tokens from him. So we had to like flip those things. So when he got there, he had to flip it back and put the token back there to save us some time. And then he had a ton of health. So this one was an interesting puzzle as well. So I really, really enjoyed some of the things that we saw here within the core box. So it's a good purchase on that one in terms of that. I haven't had a chance to play anything else beyond the core box. But so Super Friends at $65 has 1,633 people backing. I'm actually pretty happy to see that, because usually the bottom pledge doesn't have as many backers. Normally the all-in or the $100 pledge has the biggest backers, but that's because CMON for a long time wasn't including stretch goals with their like retail based pledge. They were just giving you the core box at what they would sell at a retail store, and it loses value at that point. It's just better to buy it at the retail store. Why spend shipping costs when I can just buy it at retail and at that point get it when I'm ready to buy it. Anyways, you have the $100 pledge here with the Titans pledge. There's a few things here to talk about. First off, it's going to include some Kickstarter exclusive characters if you get this pledge. So the Teen Titans appears that it's going to be crowdfunding exclusive, but if you get this pledge, you're going to get additional characters, right? So if we go here, you can actually see some of the heroes. This is just playing with these characters, and they have some Altered Beasts alternative stuff. If you're interested in this campaign, take a look at the Teen Titans stuff, because after that, we're going to have the Conqueror Pledge, which is the all-in. This has got everything in it. Now, there are some pros to getting the all-in. Definitely, you get a lot of exclusives here that are not available through cherry picking. So be aware of that. Like, you do get a good value. If this is an all-in pledge that you're going to get, there is good value here in terms of the exclusive stuff. Now, I do think that there is value kind of potentially cherry picking out a la carte items that fit your need. And I talked with my friend Matt, and we kind of went through a tier system together and talked about, okay, if we were to just tier list out these add-ons to which ones we think are the best value for gameplay wise, what would they be? And how do we assign that value? What do we weight higher in terms of value versus other things? For me and for my player group who plays this game, the value comes with the customization and the availability of the dual-sided characters that could play both villain and hero, or just more villains, because the more villains you have gives you the more variety and options to play against different types of scenarios and setups. So that's kind of our tier system. Of course, gameplay mechanics, does it offer a new type of gameplay mechanic, also plays a big part of that. So there's a different kind of outlines that we looked at. Now, one of them we're going to be taking a look at. The first, let's start from the bottom of the tier. The bottom of the tier was the Sidekicks. This doesn't really add much in terms of the gameplay. It's just kind of a cute thing. I think they did this in the Multiverse, and I think I had the exact same opinion with Sidekicks then. If you like it, if it fits your fancy, go ahead and buy it. But I don't necessarily think it's a needed purchase. On top of that, we'll talk about these two things, I guess. But we'll do that after. The next we had was the Green Lantern Corps. Now, the Green Lantern Corps is purely a hero pack. So we're not getting any additional villains, and we're not getting any additional dual, villain heroes. I don't know what they call them, the dual side characters. So this is a purely character pack. Now, usually you get quite a bit of different characters to play with already through either the different add-ons or through the stretch goals or through just the game itself. So we're not really needing a lot of characters to play with. There's a very good chance you're not going to play with them all already. So adding just a pack that is just characters loses value there. Now, the value that you gain here with the green characters is they play better with the War of Light expansion, because these guys play their cards with their color here, the green color, and then their power rings matter when you play things of color. Now, that comes up with the War of Light expansion. So if you're looking for a War of Light and you're interested in that Green Lantern storyline, this might be an add-on for you, again, if it meets your kind of personality tastes. After that, we have Metropolis. Metropolis is mostly just a little expansion. You get 3 characters. It's featuring the support characters here with Jimmy Olsen, and you get 2 villains with Doomsday and Brainiac. This one's not bad. I didn't fall in love with this one personally, and I had a hard time deciding between this one and Gotham City. I think they kind of fall in relatively even, but the differences with these ones is that they're also retail available. They're not going to be crowdfunding exclusive. Crowdfunding exclusive items also have a higher tier break, so be aware of that. But you'll notice with the Green Lantern Corps down here, I did not tier break Green Lantern higher, even though it's purely crowdfunding exclusive. To me, it was just like, I could do without this potentially. Now, if there's a bunch of stuff that I want, and Green Lantern is also like the last one I don't have, it makes more sense to get the all-in, because you get the bonuses on top of that plus the discount. But that's my point. You can a la carte this. The next one is the Gotham City. Again, it only has the exclusives down here with Batwoman and Commissioner Gordon. Otherwise, you're just getting 2 more heroes and another support character. You have the dual mode characters, which I do not believe Metropolis has a dual mode. So that's the cross off there. So at least with Gotham City, you're getting potentially 2 more villains or 2 more heroes. Like, that's value there. More of these guys, the dual mode characters, are great. Red Hood also plays very similar to like Lex Luthor, where he's a villain, but he's actually trying to be a good guy, but he's just doing a little bit harsh, not as nice as we want to see. And you only get 1 villain here with Bane. So the cross off of not getting with getting the dual mode characters, you get only one villain. So these ones were okay. You know, they add some locations, they add some stuff, which all brings value to your system, but you know, it to me it doesn't add enough. From there, we're going to go into the next break point. Now, we kind of talked about when I was talking with my friends here that there's 2 different levels of tiers here. You got the alpha tier, S tier, and then you got the beta tier. You know, and so I feel like now we're moving into the good stuff. Like, these are expansions that I wouldn't want to not have when I back this campaign. And the first one is the War of Light, and this is another Green Lantern themed expansion, but featuring a bunch of different characters with a bunch of different ring powers and ring light with them. And what I like about it is all of their cards again play different colored lights of different colored powers, and some of these rings will play into that power, which is kind of cool. I really like the idea that this one's coming up with. So this is a system I think is looking pretty cool. Now, like I said, for $40, you could also add on that Green Lantern Corp if you really want to go all in on the Green Lanterns. But I think the War of Light could just be fine on its own. After that, we're looking at the Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad looked pretty fun. It gets you a bunch of the dual mode characters, which is pure value, right? You got the Harley Quinns, you got all these guys here, and they both can be villains or played as heroes, which is cool. So in this example, the heroes are going to be trying to defeat the villains, and while the villains are trying to achieve their goals on each of these different locations. So it's a much different setup than our standard setup. And then you have villain tag team as well, so it's got an alternative play mode here as well, so giving you more ways to play the game, where you're going to choose a main villain, in this case this guy, and then the shark is the accomplice, so he's kind of helping out, giving some availability there. So really cool. I like this one a lot. I think this one's adding a lot of value, but to me the best one was the Arkham Asylum Breakout. Adds in a ton of villains, just a ton of villains, giving you all that variety to play with, as well as a good amount of heroes for you to play with as well. Now, this one will be at retail, so that's also something to take a look at. My alpha tier rated expansion is available at retail, and we're also going to get these exclusive these are the GameFound exclusive villains, if you wanted that, as well as some stuff for Harley Quinn and the Joker down there. But this one has dual player mode, so not only can you face against these villains in any kind of situation, there is also a double-sided locations here where you're going to have the villains trying to escape as Batman is actually trying to keep them inside Arkham Asylum. They're trying to escape, and so you'll have an entirely different way to play this game. It's adding a lot more of that replayability and value, and especially if you're playing a game that's this expansive, that's pretty needed. So the last thing I want to talk about, which we're going to circle back on, were the stretch goals. Now, one of the things I always like to talk about when you're we didn't talk about one thing. We'll talk about it here, so we'll go back. The thing I want to talk about here with the stretch goals is when I looked at these, and I did a somewhat similar of a video on Marvel United and then X-Men United and then the Multiverse. It's always about what are we getting in the stretch goals, and a lot of times we're just getting flooded with heroes, just hero after hero after hero, and it's like, okay, I got it. Enough heroes. I get it. That's enough heroes already. Does anyone know what meme that is? I don't want to do the whole thing because I don't want to annoy you, but that's what I think of right there. But what I like about this is we're getting a lot more villains. There's a lot more value added here to the stretch goal box to give that variety. Now, that's why I technically think that the Super Friends pledge is reasonable if you wanted to, because the stretch goal box that's included in this is getting you pretty good value as it is. So you could walk out of this pledge and get a great system at that $65 price point. So be aware of that. You don't have to spend $400 plus on the Conqueror pledge. Now, yes, this gets you a lot of cool stuff, but I think you can have a great experience with the Super Friends pledge based off the stretch goals and the way that they are kind of building it out. And if you wanted to, buy one or two of the a la carte expansions, you can see yourself under $140 and do pretty good for yourself if you wanted to. The thing I want to talk about again on the add-ons, they have 2 expansions here. They have the team decks and the campaign decks. I thought these were really cool. We haven't seen these yet. These were from the Multiverse the first time they included these, and I don't think anyone's got a chance to play with them. But basically what these are is ways for you to, again, enhance your gameplay by kind of forcing you to play specific characters of a team. Now, the original one was like, okay, well, they say right here, Justice League, Birds of Prey, Super Friends. Play with these characters, and if you do, you'll have an additional deck that you could draw from, which is basically the team working together to do something. But there is also a drawback. There's always going to be a negative card that's going to be available in this deck that once it's revealed, the passive ability is always in effect, and one of the people in the team is going to have to take that card and place it face down, effectively getting a negative turn for themselves. So that's the drawback of a team deck. But I really like the theme of this. I thought it was really cool. Again, to get the most value out of these, though, you got to have all the stuff, which is unfortunate, because if you want to play all this stuff, they're all coming from different expansions, right? So it's something to be aware of. And the same thing is said for the campaign decks. These as well are going to require, they even have a note here. They want to make sure you're very aware that these campaigns pull from a lot of these expansion content. So if you're not thinking about getting the expansion content, this might be hard to get, and they don't really tell you which ones you're going to need. So they're kind of talking about down here what to see, but you're not going to really know which campaign decks are going to be there. But effectively what these are you're going to be playing a storyline based on the comics, and each of the cards is going to have a scenario set up. So it's going to tell you this villain, this location, these locations set up around the board, and as you complete the objective, new superheroes might become available for you. Some superheroes might not be available to play anymore. Some villains might come in. It changes the storyline based on the comic books, which I think is super cool. But again, a little bit of FOMO there, because it does kind of require you to have all the stuff. Now, talking about the accessories down here, some of these things are cool, and I think they're sweet to buy. Some of them I don't think so. The playmat. I've played this game a few times now without the playmat, and every time I played it, I wish we had a playmat. So when you're playing this game, if I go back to, I think it's Project Story, here's an example of kind of the setup of the game. Now, this is doable without a playmat. You can play your stuff on the table and do a circle around, but it can get a little unruly. And every time I've done it, I was like, man, I wish we had a playmat just to have a defined place of where this game's gonna be placed, so we know, like, because I felt like we had to keep pushing stuff away. Okay, our storyline's getting big, we got to keep pushing stuff out of the way. This defines the playing area, so you know exactly what you're going to be, a spot for everything, makes it easy to go. So I really like this. This has been very popular with almost all of the reprint campaigns for United campaign games. This one's branded DC United, so if that's something cool for you, there you go. But yeah, I really like it. Plastic tokens for $30. The tokens that we had were pretty robust, and I don't necessarily think this is a needed thing to get, but people like their acrylic or plastic tokens. I'm never going to fault someone for doing it, but you are probably going to want to get both. If you're going to get one, you're probably going to get both. So you're looking at $45 for those tokens. You could get an expansion for that, so take it as you will. I mean, I don't know. The cardboard locations, while these are cool because they're a little thicker cardboard locations, this game is a lot of game, guys. And sometimes it gets hard to store all the game. And when you're adding from a single slip of paper to a pretty thick, chunky piece of cardboard, it's just adding in more space. I don't necessarily think this is needed. Now, I've heard some people buying this to get the locations from expansions they didn't buy. That is something you can do. If you're looking for just a location purchase, that is a hack you could do. I've never done that. I don't know how that works, or what it. I just want to make sure I told you that that's something people do. Same things with the villain dashboards here. Just add in more space, more stuff to store, more things to do. If you've got a ton of room, you got a ton of space, cool. I don't necessarily think it's needed. Yeah. So next we have the painting compendium. This is actually cool. A lot of games used to do art books, right? And I would buy the art book solely for the purpose of painting, because I'd use it as a reference. This is going to be like, hey, we're going to teach you, here's the colors you're going to need, here's the technique we're going to do, and here's how we're going to paint it. I think that's sweet. I wish more miniature games would do this, because I'd be down. But again, if you're not a painter, or if you're, and I think this is for beginner painters to intermediate painters. Obviously, if you're an advanced painter, you're just going to do what you want to do. But for someone who is learning about shading and learning about texture and all that kind of thing, this might be a way to paint your product and make it really shine on the board, because it does make a big difference, at least in my opinion. So I think this is cool. It might be fun to kind of have and take a look at as you're playing anyways. And then you got the metal two-face coin. This was free if you followed the campaign prior to pledge. Otherwise, it is $5. I mean, it's pretty sweet. It's a little two-face coin. I mean, you're going to get a cardboard one anyways, but for $5, I don't know. It's up to you guys. So that's that. If we go down to shipping information, right now the shipping for the first two were pretty good. $41. I mean, to be honest with you, that's reasonable with the amount of boxes you're gonna get. I don't know how many times people have backed CMON games, but when you get it all in, it is insane sometimes. Like my Marvel Zombicide that's still up here, it's just like, how many freaking it's just like kept coming. It just kept coming, a box is at a box. So $41, that's actually a pretty reasonable price in my opinion for shipping. Yes, we were spoiled for a long time with like $30 shipping for something like this, but I actually think 41 is reasonable. The 20 and 22, again, those are reasonable for the size of content and the amount of stuff you're going to be getting. So I think that's something to check out. And I think that is all. I feel like I've been talking for a long time. Hopefully you guys made it to the end here. Overall, what are my opinions and what do I recommend? I have played a lot, not a lot. I've played a few different games. I want to say a lot, but it's not true. I've played DC United. I've played Marvel United. And one of the things that I've really noticed as the game has matured is that the characters are getting a lot more unique, getting a lot more unique flavor from each of the characters, and I like that. DC United is probably the first of the 4 that have been launched to date that I'm really like thinking that this one would be one that I would back. Plus, I feel like I like the DC characters a little bit more, to be honest with you. I think they're sweet. Superman played great. Batman played great. I would love to see more of them and get a chance. So that's my take. I enjoyed the system. I'm excited to see how they're going to keep innovating it, because each time I'm like, man, that's pretty impressive that they've innovated on the system that's so basic, and they keep doing it. They keep adding on and adding on. So I'm pretty excited for what's going to happen with potentially more DC stuff. The other thing to be aware of, by the way, people were kind of upset that there was no Marvel United or Multiverse stuff in this campaign. I think you have to guys be aware of the IPs at play here. It's like Coke and Pepsi, right? You're not going to buy Pepsi and be able to buy Coke at the same time because they have exclusive agreements. We don't know how many more DC products are going to be made and if they're going to move on to something else. This might be one of the few times you potentially get it. So just be aware of it. If it's something you're going to like, you're going to probably enjoy it. For the most part, these DC games have been pretty good at keeping their pledge levels, as long their value, as long as you've got the stretch goal box. So be aware of that. Anyways, my name is Brian. I hope I helped you guys in some way make a decision. If not, I'm sorry I made it harder for you. I will talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.